let's go into the 5 kind of key main areas that you want to put together as part of that business case. And I've got them in kind of in reversed order as far as impact. The one that kind of pops out the most and is kind of oftentimes a common mistake is they make this as the most important impact, and it is definitely an influencer in that ROI number, but it isn't the biggest one. But let's make sure we calculate that. So you think about your team, you think about how many people are impacted, how much time can a proper enterprise system save them. You've got them filling out manual spreadsheets, you've got all the paper forms, you got the emails going back and forth, you got to try to find something, you can't find it, you got the disjointed system, the siloed systems, they don't talk to each other. So you think about, what does that impact the organization? Is that looking at, will this save them 2 hours a week? Will it save them 1 hour a week? Putting that number together can roll up to a pretty big number. Unfortunately, CFOs are kind of skeptical of that number. They see it as a soft cost, and they don't really feel that impacts the bottom line. So you want to definitely calculate that number, but what's going to be most impactful to her is being able to quantify that number, but show them, because I'm able to save this many hours, it's going to translate into cost avoidance. So I'm not going to hire 2 people. So that's 2 people, 50,000 each. That's 100,000. Or it's going to help me reduce some headcounts in some scenarios. So think about the productivity enhancements from two angles. What are the hard costs around the actual headcount that are going to be more interesting? And then what are the time savings where they don't have to do so many manual processes, and then they can now focus on the health and safety initiatives that they were trained for, as opposed to entering data into spreadsheets. Okay, so the second thing to look at, and this is going to be something most important to your CFO and as well as your IT team, is think about total cost of ownership and how this reduces that burden and that cost. So look at, how much does the software cost, what's going to be cost of implementation, maintenance, support, and then compare that against, well, how much does it cost currently if we had an on-premise solution? How much would it cost if we had to build it internally from scratch? A common mistake that happens in a lot of organizations is that they think, well, I've got 3 IT people here, they don't really have anything. Maybe they have some extra bandwidth. They try to build this internal solution. Then if they actually looked at both the opportunity cost of things they weren't able to work on instead, they end up with a inferior solution that actually ended up costing a lot more than if they would have bought a proper product that has all that built into it, has the IP, has the maturity, has those upgrade cycles. The third calculation is thinking about what would be your reduction in insurance premiums as you reduce your enterprise risk. So if you're able to reduce that risk by just 5%, what would that number look like? If you're able to reduce workman compensation numbers by just 5%, what would that number look like? I'll just pull in a quote here from Jared Hendel Blackford from Inhesa. Now, if a site or company has extreme exemplary performance, it's going to go down. It's not rocket science. An investment in EHS is an added insurance policy and will keep your insurance policy costs down. So one way to think of EHS systems is it's not sexy, but it's purchasing insurance, and you purchase insurance for a reason, to help mitigate your risk and to bring costs down. All right, the fourth thing to think about, and this is more of a hard cost, is according to the National Safety Council, every kind of the average all-in cost of an injury is about $38,000 per year. So you can calculate that. So think about how many incidents do you have per year? What are their average costs? What if you reduce that by just 5%? What would that number look like? What if it was 10%? Because you see, once you have a proper system, you've got the ability to do predictive analytics. Where are safety events more likely to occur? You've got your team freed up to work on preventative measures, so not always in reactive mode. So they've got that extra 2 hours we talked about in the previous slide, an extra 5 hours to focus on making sure the inspection results are quickly handled, taken care of, so you don't end up having an inspection and you got a threshold that's loose in the warehouse. It ends up being unmanaged for 5 years, 5 days, because someone put it on a manual piece of paper, it sat on somebody's desk, and then 2 days later somebody slipped and fell on it. But if you had a system that reduced that cycle time, I was able to in a real way drive down the amount of injuries per year. And now the biggest number, and the one that's most often overlooked, is reduction of that enterprise risk. That's actually your biggest number, and the one that your CFO is going to be most interested in. So think about, so injuries are still going to happen. There's no system that invents, you still got people at a work site. You're going to reduce your likelihood of risk or likelihood of somebody getting hurt, but people are still going to get hurt. So the question will be, do you have a system that's going to mitigate that risk? If someone still gets hurt, are you able to show with your system that you did everything reasonably possible to keep that person safe? And that, so you obviously you're still going to take care of that worker. You're going to still continue to try to do everything to prevent those injuries. But now you've got a closed loop system that shows, this person got hurt, but they did have the proper training. They did have the proper PPE. They were authorized to be on the site. They had everything that they needed to be safe. It was just an accident. Think about the cost of your brand when a negative PR hits. That's immeasurable. Obviously, you've got extreme events like Deepwater Horizon, but you've got smaller ones as well. You don't want to be in the OSHA severe violator category. You don't want to be in the newspaper. That's an immeasurable amount of time and money that takes years to get back. So you've got this. There's some companies that are just kind of playing that Russian roulette. So you got to be kind of careful how you talk about this. I don't think that you're being over dramatic, but it is a real thing where you've got millions of dollars of revenue, billions of dollars of revenue, and kind of playing Russian roulette. In hard times, they end up reducing safety budgets, which increases your exposure. And so they spend all this money on technology, robots, all these other things, but the safety budget, for some reason, they're still using paper forms, Excel spreadsheets, dilapidated, outdated systems. When you've got millions of dollars of potential exposure, which hits your bottom line.